Yuta Akotsu, the cursed prodigy of Jujutsu High versus Kashimo, the god of lightning and the strongest of the Edo era. My brothers and sisters, this hypothetical matchup is a heated one between some of the strongest Jujutsu sorcerers in the series, but it's also a very interesting fight because it lets us explore the technicality of a battle between well-versed and extremely competent sorcerers. Today, I thought it would be fun to look at a matchup between these two now that we have seen quite a bit more from Yuta Akotsu and his powers and abilities. As of now, Yuta has been very impressive versus the King of Curses, and we have already seen Kashimo's debut, his death, and defeat versus this Sukuna. So let's break down, power scale, and consider how a battle between Yuta up to chapter 251 would go versus the legendary Revenant Kashimo. Yuta is now the last special grade Jujutsu sorcerer, a cursed prodigy child and a descendant from Sugawara no Michizane. Akotsu is Jujutsu High's all-star, even praised as second only to Satoru Gojo in the modern era, in terms of his unusual supernatural Jujutsu abilities. And with good reason. Yuta is our main cast's most stacked sorcerer in terms of Jujutsu skill, cursed energy, and cursed techniques. So as we consider Yuta versus his opponent Kashimo today, let's consider three specific criteria: physical prowess plus cursed energy manipulation, Jujutsu skill, Jujutsu sense such as reverse curse technique, simple domains, and black flashes, and finally curse technique prowess including domain expansions and extension techniques. And based on the feats that these sorcerers have shown regarding these categories and the specifics of their matchup, then I will express who I think will win in a battle to the death. Continuing with Yuta Akotsu, by harboring a vengeful spirit named Rika, Yuta has gained immense power in this current era. Physically, even Yuta describes himself as rather weak, comparing himself to post-Shibuya Yuji, and that particular exchange revealed Yuta's true power through his cursed energy. Throughout the series, Yuta's cursed energy amount is second only to Ryomen Sukuna. Yuta even possesses more cursed energy than Gojo, and his cursed energy amount is said to be boundless, and Rika herself is a spirit of endless cursed energy. Despite not having impressive physical power, Yuta compensates by using cursed energy reinforcement to strengthen himself. Yuta's whole body surges with cursed energy, and this allows him to make every attack decisive, and he also keeps the damage that he takes to a minimum. In terms of quantity, as we considered, Yuta has a boundless reserve of cursed energy, and this quantity defines the rate in which Yuta can output said cursed energy. When fighting against Ryu, he likened it to knocking against a massive water tank because Yuta's cursed energy pool was just so massive. So when a sorcerer has so much cursed energy, they are able to constantly surge it throughout them, and this keeps their reinforcement high. With all this cursed energy, this lets Yuta be explosive with his movements and exponentially increases his otherwise weak body. In JJK 0, Yuta was able to keep up with Geto Suguru this way, and even with the lack of control that he had then, his cursed energy makes him faster, and it greatly enhances his physical capability, so he's able to keep up with high-level sorcerers. This is how Yuta ran the gauntlet in Sendai, fighting Daruv, Kurourushi, Uro, and Ryu back to back to back. Even Yuta's cursed energy output itself is nothing to scoff at. Abnormally, once Rika has been manifested, Yuta is able to fire this cursed energy like an intense beam of energy. And while his output is not as high as Ryu, even at its maximum, this devastating attack surpassed Geto's Uzumaki, who had 4,000 plus curses imbued into it, and this even led to Geto's ultimate defeat. In terms of cursed energy output, cursed energy quantity, and reinforcement, Yuta is the prime example of a sorcerer who fully utilizes all of it in order to defeat his opponents. Yuta is also one of the most diverse sorcerers in the series when it comes to skills. Throughout the series, Yuta has shown cursed tool usage, shikigami usage, reverse curse technique, black flash, not one, not two, or even three, but six different curse techniques, and finally his own domain expansion. Now Yuta has two different states that he usually fights in. One you can consider his base, when Yuta just relies on his cursed energy manipulation. In this state, Yuta can use a cursed tool like his signature katana, and he can use reverse curse technique, which Yuta's RCT is especially high level, considering he can output positive energy, and Yuta can even heal toxins. Yuta can also use a partially manifested Rika that appears shadow-like, and this Rika is still able to pack a powerful punch. as it was able to easily hold down Yuji, and recently it has been able to help hold down Sukuna, and this Rika can competently fight back and even damage Sukuna like this. However, when Yuta gets serious and puts his ring on, he unleashes his full power. When connected to Rika via the ring, Yuta gets access to curse techniques, a fully manifested Rika, and he can obtain Rika's cursed energy amount for himself. The only drawback being that this enhanced state only lasts for 5 minutes. But during this state, Yuta most importantly has his curse technique Copy, which is incredibly broken. This of course lets him copy curse techniques, and so far he has displayed 6 copy techniques that we will consider in his battle versus Kashimo. Number 1. Angel's Jacob's Ladder. This by far would likely be Kashimo's biggest hurdle in this fight, since Angel's power is a direct counter to incarnated sorcerers, and it would force Kashimo to fight in his base since it would extinguish curse techniques. A sorcerer like Angel made it a point to avoid Kashimo altogether, but if Jacob's Ladder can actively remove the cursed object engraved inside of a reincarnated Kashimo, then he would simply perish. Number 2. Uro's Sky Manipulation. This also poses a threat since Thin Icebreaker hits hard enough to damage even Sukuna, and it bends space like a blanket, making it a very unique way to block and even redirect attacks for very little cost. Number 3. Daruv Shikigami Curse Technique, and this creates Shikigami formed through a medium like Yuta's hair, and when these Shikigami fly around, their trails create invaluable barriers in their trajectories that cause damage to enemies in their path. Number 4. Curse Speech. This is another effective ability since it can flat out create large openings in the opponent's defense by forcing them to stop, get crushed, or blast away. An opponent can guard themselves by shrouding their ears in cursed energy, but this can be something that can be devastating if caught off guard. Number 5. Clairvoyance, which gives Yuta the ability to see a few seconds into the future by placing a manga panel on the target and using the ink marked on the tip of Yuta's weapon. Considering how strong Yuta already is, this just makes him all the more formidable to have real precognition. And finally, number 6. Yuta has displayed usage of Sukuna's Cleave. A part of Sukuna's Shrine Curse technique, Yuta is likely able to use Dismantle as well, which both Dismantle and Cleave are deadly slash attacks which few characters can even resist. With Rika, Yuta was able to overcome Sendai thanks to his Copy Curse technique, and he has been shown to be able to quickly adapt and strategize when facing various opponents. Yuta was able to slay the Daruv, beat down Uro with little effort, he killed Kurorushi twice, and he was finally able to go blow for blow with Ryu even after Curse technique burnout, then beat him with his own attack. Recently, Yuta has been fighting the King of Curses, Sukuna. All of his attacks have proved effective to damage this Sukuna, and that was in Yuta's base before he went all out. Then Yuta unleashed his true power by opening his domain expansion called All-Encompassing Unequivocal Love. This domain lets him choose a sure hit from one of his curse techniques that he copied so far. Then the rest of the techniques are imbued in the infinite amount of swords scattered around the domain. Here, Yuta is almost unstoppable, given countless options to take down enemies. The only variable is that the curse technique engraved into the katanas are random and can only be used one time per katana. This is one of the strongest domain expansions in the series and easily makes Yuta one of the most formidable and versatile opponents. Yuta Akotsu really is a prodigy. Now we make it to the God of Lightning, Kashimo Hajime, a sorcerer who is considered the strongest of his era, much like Gojo. Kashimo was undefeated, and even in Kashimo's old age, he could not find an opponent strong enough to satisfy him. However, reincarnated in the modern era, he shows us just how strong he really is. Physically, Kashimo is insanely strong. In terms of strength, he is pretty relative to Jackpot Hikari, as they were going blow for well over 15 plus minutes, which is an outstanding testament showcasing Kashimo's endurance and durability. He fought Hikari round after round, and he still had a lot left in the tank despite how he was dealt with. Kashimo is not like most sorcerers in that nearly all his life he never used his cursed technique. Instead, Kashimo wields a special cursed energy trait that makes his cursed energy aura like that of electricity, which is immensely overpowered. Kashimo already has outstanding fundamental control over his cursed energy, like how he can reinforce himself to block hits from a Jackpot Hikari or Panda's gorilla forms. And then he uses his explosive output in his hand-to-hand fighting style. When he uses uses this unique form of cursed energy manipulation to give his cursed energy the trait of electricity. This just makes Kashimo almost unstoppable in close quarters. And to find out the hard way, Kashimo's attacks cannot really be blocked because Kashimo's body is always electrified like the Nue Shikigami. So infusing cursed energy plus the electrical property results in an attack that is hard to block with cursed energy alone. Just making contact with Kashimo's cursed energy will affect the opponent whether attacking or defending. But its true power is revealed when Kashimo applies electrical charges to targets and discharges electricity between them. He separates a positive charge to his target and holds within himself a negative charge, unleashing a powerful bolt of electrical cursed energy ripping through the atmosphere. This attack allows Kashimo to get a sure hit effect without a domain expansion since the lightning tethers between targets. This one move makes Kashimo one of the most deadly sorcerers in the series. It easily will rip through reinforced flesh and bone, and this is just Kashimo in his base. He also uses Hollow Wicker Basket, which is very important. This lets him cancel out an opponent's sure hit inside the domain expansion, so at the very least he has some type of defense. Once Kashimo activates his Mythic Beast Amber curse technique, he transforms his body past the limits of humanity. Any phenomena that can be created using electricity is his weapon. Sound waves, X-rays, electromagnetic waves, he uses all of it to unleash devastating attacks. Not only that, but his agility also increased thanks to activating his brain's electrical signals. This Kashimo is stronger, faster, and more powerful at the cost of his own life. Powerful enough to face Sukuna right after his fight with Gojo, and pressure Sukuna enough for him to resume his reincarnation back from the Heian era. Before the transformation, Kashimo was able to easily land hits on this weakened Sukuna, constantly keeping Sukuna on the defensive, just barely able to keep up until Sukuna went back to the Heian era. At that point, there's not really too much to go over with Kashimo. He was then bodied, blitzed, and overpowered, then killed. He was unable to land any effective strikes on Sukuna, and he was cut down by Sukuna's slashes. However, as it stands, Kashimo is still an insanely strong sorcerer. So exactly who would win in a battle between Kashimo and Yuta Akotsu? First and foremost, they both have some pretty interesting feats versus Sukuna, but there are levels to this. In both instances of their fight versus Sukuna, he was nerfed thanks to Gojo, meaning the Sukuna that they both fight has lower cursed energy amount, nerfed cursed energy output, nerfed reverse curse technique output, and most importantly, no domain expansion. The version Kashimo first fought is especially weak since he had all these debuffs plus his health was extremely low, which is why Sukuna had to restore himself with reincarnation. When Kashimo fought a healed Heian Sukuna, it was a pretty bad wash. At least Sukuna did the honor of acknowledging him, Kashimo, and Gojo were their era's strongest, and he took Kashimo out with one of his strongest dismantles. Thus ended the Kashimo hype and began the era of Kashimo memes. It was bad, but it's a fully awakened Sukuna. It is what it is. However, when Yuta fought Sukuna, albeit Sukuna may have been slightly nerfed initially since he took one noticeable injury fighting 5+ sorcerers and took one Yuji soul hit, which we know lowers his cursed energy output and vessel control, but that's hardly even enough to matter. In fact, his RCT was returning, growing stronger by the time Yuta showed up, and there's a big difference in strength and cursed energy output from before Yuta's domain versus the duration of that domain when Yuji nerfed Sukuna to oblivion. Both Sukunas in chapter 238 and 249 should barely be any different, and Sukuna still has not gone all out. Yuta was so much more impressive. Even Sukuna regarded him as the main dish. Yuta and Rika were actually able to give Sukuna a fight. Yuta was able to punch his mouth, dodge his slashes, tank his dismantle slashes, and clash with Sukuna's dismantle twice. Forced Sukuna to use Hollow Wicker Basket and caught him off guard with a thin icebreaker. Granted, that isn't that much, but when you're facing Sukuna, that's a lot more than anyone else could really show or say when your name's not Gojo. So for the battle, say Yuta and Kashimo fight right after their argument in chapter 234. Words were said, things got heated. Kashimo calls Yuta a 5-minute fraud. Yuta calls him a farmer. They fight. Kashimo is fed up and he unleashes Mythic Beast Amber. Yuta pulls his ring on, calling forth Awakened Rika. Well, Kashimo does have a bit of an edge physically. His reinforcement is tough. This guy can go blow for blow with Jackpot Hikari, a Hikari who Yuta said himself was stronger than him on a roll. And now he's even faster since his agility has increased, giving Kashimo more opportunities to hit Yuta and more chances to unleash his lightning. Kashimo's lightning discharge was hard enough to deal with before, but now he has access to even more attacks. The lightning itself is still one of Kashimo's biggest win conditions because if he builds a charge, Yuta won't be able to dodge it or avoid it. And I'm certain Yuta could use his powerful RCT to heal damage done across his body. However, Yuta isn't Hikari. Heavy damage will slow him down, and a shot to the head would likely kill Yuta. In this state, Kashimo's electrical attacks and blasts are outrageously fast. Sound waves would likely catch Yuta by surprise, and the electromagnetic waves are extremely destructive as they can vaporize the environment, and high exposure to this is deadly. Even Sukuna had to dodge this attack or avoid it altogether. And Yuta may have some trouble dealing with these attacks since they are so fast, but at the very least I think he tanks the sound waves, and you can argue he can use sky manipulation to protect himself from the EM waves. However, current Yuta has his advantages as well. A huge advantage is being able to use Angel's Jacob's Ladder, and outside a domain, there is no guaranteed hit, yet 15 Finger Sukuna makes no attempt to dodge this attack's high output, considering just how obvious it was in chapter 213. Their strategy with Yuta's plan was to make sure Sukuna's arms and mouth was occupied in the domain, countering the World Slash. Jacob's Ladder itself can erase the cursed object engraved inside of Kashimo, which will kill him, and it can extinguish his curse technique, which, considering it's a one-time use sort of thing, it's hard to say if he can release it again, though regardless it's still a hindrance while Jacob's Ladder is active. Yuta is able to use Curse Speech with Rika, which gives Yuta a big advantage if Kashimo is not expecting it, and it gives Yuta a moment to cast Domain Expansion. And in Yuta's domain, Kashimo is cooked. He's better off trying to kill Yuta beforehand. Yuta has too many options within his own domain. First of all, Kashimo is automatically forced to use Hollow Wicker Basket, which limits his movement since the user has to fold their hands together to avoid the sure hit. Reggistar didn't have this condition when we saw his Hollow Wicker Basket, but at that point, Megumi's domain didn't have a sure hit, and if Sukuna has to maintain it, so does Kashimo. So as a result, his movements are limited. No punches, he can't really form any beams with his hands, and Kashimo literally has to kick and scream and thrash his way to victory. If Kashimo was struck by the sure hit of Jacob's Ladder or Dismantle and Cleave, he's losing. They would destroy his body. Even if Angel's sure hit fails to kill him, he's now scorched with no curse technique, no reverse curse technique, and he'd basically be handcuffed with Hollow Wicker Basket inside an enemy domain. What is Kashimo doing when Yuta dual wields Curse Speech plus Dismantle and Cleave to cut off his hands? And then Kashimo doesn't actually know what he has. What if it's not Curse Speech? It's Clairvoyance or Shikigami or Sky Manipulation, giving Yuta yet another advantage. It can be any number of combos mixed with a limitless amount of options at Yuta's disposal. Not to mention the giant yandere creature fully manifested, actively trying to tag team and kill Kashimo at every turn. This thing is strong enough to send Sukuna flying, durable enough to tank dismantles. Rika is like a giant flying Ryu Ishiguri. She can pin opponents down, punch the crap out of them, fire cursed energy. She assists Yuta, protects Yuta, gives Yuta endless cursed energy. Kashimo is a dead man in that domain expansion. If I was to rank their chances of winning out of 10, I would say in normal circumstances outside of domain expansions, when Yuta uses one curse technique at a time, he still has access to a awakened Rika, his curse tools, plus curse techniques, versus Kashimo with Mythic Beast Amber and that full kit, Yuta will win 7 out of 10 times. Yuta still has too much at his disposal during those 5 minutes that gives him various advantages, especially with him using Jacob's Ladder. You could argue that Kashimo is just so much more faster than Yuta with his movement speed and especially his attack speed that it's not even close. Kashimo's electromagnetic waves alone would realistically be the speed of light. That's just how they are in the real world. Yet a half-dead Sukuna is reacting and dodging to these attacks point blank, then turns around and he can't react to sound waves and gets mollyrocked by Kashimo's punch. And later Sukuna chants World Dismantle faster than the attack and even tells Kashimo to dodge said attack, which he did dodge it. Inconsistent is an understatement. It's more than a little goofy if you think Sukuna or Kashimo is faster than light. You're free to think that, but we don't do that here. And there's no way to tell how it works with cursed energy or how much damage the EM waves would do to a reinforced Yuta or Rika, who still did much better against relatively the same Sukuna. It is weird, but I think at the very least Yuta can defend himself with sky manipulation, and Kashimo's best tool to kill Yuta is his lightning discharge. In the case of Yuta's domain expansion, I think Yuta's chances to win go up to 10 times out of 10. Maybe Yuta's chances wouldn't have been so high before, however, with these current 6 curse techniques, plus Rika, plus Kashimo being handcuffed with Hollow Wicker Basket, Kashimo isn't going to have any room to breathe, and Jacob's Ladder would counter him whether he is or isn't incarnated, as it would extinguish his curse technique, forcing him into base. Then he's facing Yuta at his peak with countless options: Awaken Rika ready to beat him down, and a short hit of Dismantle and Cleave, then Icebreaker, Curse Speech, Shikigami Tracks, Clairvoyance, or Jacob's Ladder, whatever Yuta wants to do in that moment. So, my brothers and sisters, as for this sorcerer battle, Yuta Akotsu dominates.